So, I've completed Camellya's companion quest, and I wanted to just have a little chat with you guys about my thoughts on the quest itself, and yeah, just see what you guys think as well. Anybody who's watched my content knows that I've been quite critical of the story within Wuthering Waves in some of its components. I don't think it's a bad story, but I've been very critical in some of the elements within the story itself. But I've also been incredibly positive about the companion quests. I think they have been some of the best storytelling that we've got so far in the game. Now, obviously the last one we had, being Shorekeeper prior to Encore, wasn't up to speed in my opinion. I feel like the pacing was off. We didn't spend enough time with the Shorekeeper to really get a connection. Everything just felt, the pacing just wasn't there, and it just didn't impact me the way I was hoping it would. Now, that being said, I have a totally different opinion this time around. But before we get into actually talking about the companion quest itself and why I think it's a little bit better, or much better in my opinion, I wanted to actually talk about some things outside of the storytelling, and I think they needed to be discussed because I think Kuro have outdone themselves once again here. And the first one I want to talk about is the music. I am absolutely in love with the music in this companion quest. It was almost perfect. It was brilliant. It really elevated some of the scenes, gave a real cinematic vibe. It really helped in the storytelling. It was beautiful. And Wuthering Waves just has some great music. It really does. But I just feel like, again, they have elevated themselves to a whole new level here. It really lifted the whole thing up to a different area. And I really enjoyed it. I found myself stopping a couple of times while I was streaming just to say, man, the music really be hitting here. It's making this just feel so much better, and it was the timing was perfect. It was just so well done. Man, the music team did a stellar job.
This flower is for you. To express my...
It's the correct timeline juncture. Initiating jump now.
I think they've done a really good job, I will say, on this companion quest with the music. Music's top tier. Also, another thing I wanted to talk about was the environmental design. I think, once again, like the music, they outdid themselves. Now, Wuthering Waves, again, has some amazing environmental design. The aesthetic of the game, the world, some of the companion quest locations, story locations, just the different areas of the game all look amazing. But once again, I think they stepped things up. The environmental design was beautiful. It was dark. It was foreboding. It really felt like we were going into the mind of Camellya, but at the same time, it was incredibly beautiful. The locations were very pretty. The lighting was gorgeous. I can't wait for this game to get ray tracing because it's going to look even more spectacular. But the environmental design, just like the music, I found myself stopping here and there just to be like, man, this area looks really nice, really well designed. Love the aesthetic. The design team absolutely killed it. And again, I have to plead to Kuro, please give us dungeons. It feels like you're creating all of the components here, and it's like, just put it together and give us dungeons, I beg you. But again, environmental design absolutely smashed it out the park with this one, Kuro did. Environmental design as well is some of the best we've seen in the game, actually. I really like it. It's gonna be a perfect dungeon, this would. Now we got some light mechanics in here as well. That could be... Oh, that looks really cool. Now, it'll be a shame if this doesn't get used again, won't it? Because this is a gorgeous area to fight a boss in. Now, in regards to the actual quests and the minute-to-minute gameplay, I enjoyed it very much. I did enjoy the little bit of, I guess you could call it somewhat light platform in regards to the seed and the little bridges. Simple little gameplay mechanic, but it was just a nice change in the gameplay flow. Again, very much felt like we were traversing a dungeon. But I do admit, although I had issues with Shorekeeper's story, that lead up to the final boss in the Shorekeeper quest was just peak in my opinion, and I don't think we quite hit those highs here. I think the entirety of the missions felt better paced. I enjoyed it from start to finish. more consistently than I did the Shorekeeper questline. Felt like things felt a little bit slow at the start of that, but they really peaked up before you fought the boss. This didn't have that peak, but it just was better overall. So I did enjoy the entirety of playing the questline better, but just didn't quite have that peak. Now, let's talk about Camellya's VA. She should be applauded.
It's you. Restraints. Voices. So many noises. It hurts.
Did a really good job with the music. I'm taking you back to the medical pod.
My head. My whole body hurts.
She should be incredibly proud of the work she's done here. I'm talking about the English VA as well. Play the game in English. We all know that Wuthering Waves has had its issues when it comes to voice acting. It's been poor in some places and quite mediocre in others. They are improving across the board, it does seem. And Camellya is no different. She absolutely killed it. One of my favourite VAs in the game now, along probably with Scar. I think she did a really good job at bringing out the hedonistic vibe of Camellya. Really did well with the emotion. She just absolutely killed it. I don't think they could have got a better English VA, in my opinion. Really helped with the connection and just made it so much more enjoyable to play through the story as Camellya as well. She should be incredibly proud of the work. And shout out to Kuro as well for the scouting department, because they absolutely nailed it with Camellya. Okay, let's talk now actually about the story itself. Now, we're not going to go into the minutiae of the story. I just want to talk about my overall vibe with it, basically. I didn't have so much enjoyment with the Shorekeeper questline because I just felt like we didn't get to spend enough time with the Shorekeeper herself. And again, for me, I've said this before, I find the Rover kind of uninteresting as a character. As a plot device, pretty cool, but as a character, not that interesting. And the resonators themselves are some of the most interesting parts of the game, and I just felt like with the Shorekeeper questline, we really didn't get to spend much time with the Shorekeeper at all. I understand that was because the way the quest was set out, we were kind of saving the Shorekeeper and sorting out the whole Tethys system. I get that, but it just felt like it would have been nice to spend a little bit more time with the Shorekeeper and understand things from her perspective, and that bond might have worked better for the finale of Rover and Shorekeeper to coming together, and it might have just felt a little bit more natural. We didn't have that problem this time round. We spent a lot of time with Camellya, not just along the ride with Rover, but actually as Camellya in an introspective sense. You know, her discord that was going on and the discourse with inside her, a lot of inner monologue, understanding where she was, why she was feeling the way she felt, you know, her emotional range that's all over the place. And we talked about the glazing in this game, and some people are totally fine with it. I would prefer some conflict within the game, if I'm honest. But the glazing that people warned me about within this questline, and I was a little bit worried about myself, it wasn't the same. It just didn't feel like it was just about glazing the Rover. It was more of a, again, I think it was because we saw the discourse within Camellya's own head, the rivalry, the desire to compete, to be like Rover, to chase the power that she has, to attain new levels of self. It was more about Camellya becoming something comparable to the Rover, rather than trying to just be the Rover's best friend and hang on to the Rover's coattails. So I was happy that we went down that avenue, because as I said, I do want to see more discord in the game between Resonators and Rover, and maybe not see Rover as just this perfect being that's always going through the game doing the right things. But I think they did a really good job of showing off Camellya's thought process and erratic thought process that she was going through. And again, going back to the VA, she did a really good job at this. And I feel like I definitely got a lot more of a bonding with Camellya than I did with Shorekeeper specifically, because I think that's a good one to compare it to, because we just spent so little time with the Shorekeeper, and it was from a third person perspective when we did. It was always usually from the Rover's perspective, and we just, you know, the Shorekeeper vocalized her feelings, where we actually, you know, we became Camellya for this quest, and she was a lot more understandable. I think she was developed a lot more than the Shorekeeper was as well. And I think they did such a good job on it at the end when she talks about going on adventures with the Rover in future. I was like, yes, I want to see that. I feel like these would be two really good characters to have come together multiple times throughout the story, because I feel like they just work together. They bounce off each other really quite well, that I feel like maybe other characters don't do so much in the game. I think maybe Shia kind of bounces off well with the Rover, but I don't know, I just feel like Camellya and Rover off on adventures together would be a real cool, you know, buddy cop kind of sitcom, you know, adventure story. I just feel like they're a great partnership, and with the kind of character that Camellya is, it would be really interesting, hopefully, when we do go to other places, that we meet up with Camellya again, and she becomes actually an important component to the entirety of the story as well. And it was cool that we got to see almost these, you know, branching timelines, almost a multiversal kind of scenario, when we got to see, I guess, almost the happy ending for Camellya. Although we kind of got that at the end of the quest. We got to see these almost, you know, if everything went well for her in her younger years, what she would have become. I thought that was kind of cool as well. As a person, I'm probably a little bit biased for Camellya, because I think she's one of my favourite characters in the game. So maybe I'll let things slide a little bit that maybe some other people didn't. But I just really wanted to talk about these, because I've been very critical of the story, and I've made videos recently, and people have disagreed and some people have agreed. But I just wanted to put this out there because, you know, I reacted to the trailer, and when I heard her whistling the melody, and then we saw the Rover, I was like, oh no, please don't let it be another one like that. But it was much more interesting this time. My worries were misfounded. I don't think I needed to worry so much, because I think Kuro did a really good job. I was very impressed with his story. The end environmental design as well, with the final boss with the heron, was awesome. I want to see more of this. I definitely want to see more of this, and I hope that when we get to meet other Resonators in the future, we spend a bit more time with the Resonator. Again, I still haven't changed my mind that I think in future patches that it would be really cool that if we just spent the entire patch with some of the other Resonators. I think it will be so much better, because they are way more interested in the Rover, and I understand it's a self-insert and it's for us to be the protagonist, but I also think we've got some really interesting characters here, and we should spend a lot more time with them, and hopefully Kuro do that in the future, because the fact that we got to spend a little bit of time with Camellya here was brilliant, and I really appreciated it, and I really enjoyed it as well, because at the end of the day, it's a gacha game. We want to pull for our waifus, so why not spend more time with the characters you're trying to sell to us? It's what creates the bond. It's what makes people want to pull on the characters, and I genuinely feel like there were people who probably were skipping Camellya, but after playing this companion quest, might have actually changed their mind just on the connection that we got with the character. Maybe I'm tripping on that, but I do believe that's a factor. And, you know, I was pulling on her anyway. But I think if I was on the fence, I think this quest line, this companion quest, would have made me pull for her personally. But yeah, I just wanted to know what you guys think as well. What did you think of Camellya's companion quest? I've seen some people talking about it being perfect. I've seen some titles on YouTube. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect, but it was very good. And it was a drastic improvement on the Shorekeeper storyline, in my opinion. Much more interesting, much more reflective, way more connection with the new Resonator as well. Made her much more interesting. She just seems much more of a rounded, well-built character than the Shorekeeper herself, in my opinion. The Shorekeeper almost feels like, I don't know, she feels so flat and 2D in a sense in terms of her personality now, compared to Camellya, who's this well-rounded, fleshed-out, interesting character as well to add to the roster. Do more of this, Kuro, and I would be very appreciative personally. I definitely want to spend more time in the Resonators, but I'd like to know what you guys think as well. This was a great companion quest. It was beautiful in terms of the areas. Voice acting was great. Music was amazing. The gameplay itself was pretty decent. And I really enjoyed it as well. I very much enjoyed it. And I didn't find myself getting triggered by the rover being in the places. It made sense, if that makes sense. Sometimes I get a bit triggered and I'm like, oh God, can somebody just kick the rover in the face? I didn't get that this time. I enjoyed it. But I'd like to know what you guys think anyway. Let me know in the comment section. If you did enjoy the video, guys, drop a like. And I will see you in the next one. Ta-ra.